Hi, my name is Fallout, and today I'm going to explain and review every gadget and grenade and arc raiders in just 30 seconds each. Starting with common tier, the Noisemaker. After placing a Noisemaker either on the wall or just down on the ground, it'll sit there until a nearby arc or enemy raider wanders too close to the activation radius. When activated, it'll freak out and make a loud continuous noise for several seconds or until broken manually. Not incredibly lethal, but you can set them up in key areas to let you know if enemy raiders are nearby. You used to be able to use them to glitch through doors into keycard rooms, but Embark Studios found a really interesting way of shutting that tactic down pretty quick. Gas Mine. The Gas Mine is a device you can either place down on the floor or on a wall. When an enemy raider or arc wanders into the activation zone, which is only a few meters, it'll pop up and deploy gas all over the area. Like every gadget in the game that attacks with gas, the enemy raider won't take any damage to their health bar, but they will rapidly lose stamina as long as they stay in the gas. Not as deadly as other options, but still good, as you can make it harder for enemy players to run away from danger, which is always fun. Door blocker. A door blocker can be used on most closed doors in the game. When applied, the door blocker won't permanently shut the door, but it will make it so that anyone who wants to open the door will need to first breach it open, which will A, take a couple seconds to do, and B, make a good amount of noise. Not a bad idea to use if you're looting an important area, as you'll definitely hear an enemy team trying to breach your door blocker, giving you plenty of time to prepare. A really underappreciated item for the low overall cost. Remote Raider Flare. The Remote Raider Flare is a device you first stick into the ground, and then when you choose to activate it, it fires a raider flare up into the sky. The exact same type of flare that normally shoots out of a raider who just got downed. You and your teammates can set up a potential ambush by setting off a whole bunch, then waiting patiently nearby for any overly thirsty raiders to come check out the situation expecting to find free loot. Doesn't always work, but a funny tactic for sure. Binoculars. Binoculars allow you to have a first-person zoomed-in look at objects a great distance away, and that's about it. Decent if you're in the mood to do a little reconnaissance at whatever's happening on the other side of the map. But if I'm being honest, binoculars are, to me, one of the most pointless gadgets in the game, and I always let out a disappointing sigh when I get one in a free loadout kit. Light Impact Grenade. The Light Impact Grenade doesn't have any sort of timer, but will immediately deal damage in a small area when it makes contact with any kind of surface. Having a grenade that immediately detonates on impact and deal damage is actually great, but the downside is the low damage output. Only 30 per grenade, which is relatively low compared to other options. Still very good at damaging enemy raiders who might be camping or hiding behind cover. Gas Grenade. The gas grenade can be thrown and will detonate on impact, spraying out a large amount of green gas, letting you crop dust enemy raiders at the drop of a hat. Like the mine, the gas itself will not do any damage to the raider's health bar, but will instead drain their stamina very rapidly. Not a bad option considering how cheap they are to make, but I usually prefer grenades that deal actual damage. Gas Grenade Trap. Same thing as the gas grenade, except now you do some Home Alone level bullshit by turning it into a tripwire trap. When anything walks through the red laser beam, the trap will activate and the gas deploys. I think I prefer the Gas Mine, as it's very easy to see the red laser cast by the grenade trap and potentially avoid it, although you can try to put it in more unavoidable locations like at the top of ziplines, which is always fun, especially if you're okay with being a bad person. Lil Smoke Grenade. The Lil Smoke Grenade is a throwable nade that does no damage but drops a small cloud of smoke on the ground for 6 seconds. Honestly, considering how cheap they are to make, Lil Smoke Grenades are one of the better low-cost utility items in the game. Throw them during an extract to make it harder for you to be seen and therefore attacked on the way out. Hide from enemy arc, or use them to quickly cover yourself while looting. A cheap but very effective version of its bigger brother. Blue, green, red, or yellow light stick. A little glow stick. Throw it on the ground and it'll cast that color light in a 7-meter radius for about 40 seconds. Better than the binoculars, I guess, but still one of the least used and forgettable pieces of gear in the entire game. Although you can always throw a few down and pretend you're at a rave. Uncommon tier, Seeker Grenade. The Seeker Grenade is essentially a junior Wolfpack. Throw it into the air near an arc, it'll detonate and deploy a single homing missile towards the closest arc, dealing 50 damage on impact, which is respectable. Use it to either do a little bit of damage to larger arc, guaranteed, or better yet, to just quickly shut down any smaller flying arc. Snap Blast Grenade. When thrown, the Snap Blast Grenade will stick to whatever it hits, including arc or an enemy raider. Once attached, it has a short delay and then detonates for 70 damage, which is pretty good, and only barely weaker than a heavy Fuze grenade. In my own opinion, I prefer the Snap Blast grenade for arc and the heavy Fuze grenade for enemy raiders. Pulse Mine. The Pulse Mine is a strange landmine that technically doesn't do any kind of damage on its own. When somebody gets too close, it'll activate, staggering and knocking enemy raiders back a few feet. While you might think this would be great for knocking players off a high ledge, it is, but take note that raiders who fall off high ledges due to the Pulse Mine basically take no fall damage, which I find really odd. You can use Pulse Mines in combination with other traps to basically stun raiders and keep them in danger for longer. Barricade Kit. Barricades can be deployed on the floor in front of you, but only if you're in an area large enough to support the barricade to begin with. The barricade is basically a wall on demand. It can be destroyed if it takes enough damage, and it can also be broken down manually, either by you or by an enemy player. I feel that barricades are one of the most underutilized gadgets in the entire game. I use them as makeshift cover, to F with enemy players, the list goes on. They're incredibly useful and dirt cheap to make. More people should try them. Lure Grenade. The Lure Grenade will make a loud, annoying noise for 15 seconds, drawing the attention of any nearby arc. You can use it as a distraction to get yourself out of danger, you can throw it at an enemy raider to make their life difficult, or you can throw it at one arc in hopes that a different arc will shoot the Lure Grenade and do some friendly fire damage in the process. Not exactly god tier, but a fun tool. Lure Grenade Trap. Pretty much the same thing as a Lure Grenade, but it'll only activate when a player or arc has walked through the red laser after you've set it up on a wall or ceiling. When they do, the trap activates and drops a loud Lure Grenade right then and there. Mostly good for effing with enemy raiders, of course. Shrapnel Grenade. The Shrapnel Grenade will detonate after a short duration, dealing 60 damage in a 6-meter radius. Take note that the damage is weak against arc armor, meaning that the primary function of this grenade is to F up enemy raiders. Not a bad grenade overall if you're in a PvP kind of mood. They're also not terribly expensive to make either. Flame Spray. Flame Spray is the arc raider's version of a teenager weaponizing a can of hairspray and a lighter. You gotta get really close to your target, but you just spray it with fire. This is horrible against enemy raiders. You'd literally only win a 1v1 if the other guy was already in a coma. It's okay against enemy arc, but it depends on the arc. I was informed of one really niche use for it, which is cooking leapers. If you get a leaper stuck somewhere close quarters, you can completely melt them with a flame spray. Go give it a try. It's pretty fun. Recorder. The recorder is a musical instrument that you can take out and play a little tune with. Even though it's pretty much a meme, I literally never shoot any raider who I find out in the wild playing the recorder. It's really the universal sign of I'm just here to be silly and not cause trouble. If you shoot someone playing the recorder, I have it on good authority that you're immediately guaranteed a first-class ticket to hell, kind of like people who intentionally pee all over the toilet seat. Rare tier. Heavy Fuze Grenade. The Heavy Fuze Grenade is just a regular old nothing fancy hand grenade. Throw it, and after a very short delay, it'll detonate, dealing a very respectable 80 damage in a 7.5 meter radius. Honestly, the Heavy Fuze is straight up one of my favorite items in the game, and one of the reasons I will literally always grab any canister I see out in the wild. They're okay against enemy arc, but they really shine against other raiders, especially in close quarters combat. A high tier PvP item IMO. Showstopper. The Showstopper is a grenade that detonates after a short delay, but rather than do any damage, it just stuns any enemy within a 6-meter radius. And while it is tempting to use on other raiders, remember that players only get stunned for 2 seconds total, whereas arc will get stunned for 10 seconds. Meaning, Showstoppers are really designed for temporarily stunning and effing with arc, which they do incredibly well. Consider bringing a few to a matriarch or a queen fight. They are great if your only concern is arc. Jolt Mine. Like the Showstopper, the Jolt Mine was designed not to damage but stun enemies. Put it on a wall or the floor and it'll pop up and stun anything in a 5-meter radius when activated. While arc will again get stunned for 10 seconds, the Jolt Mine can stun enemy raiders for 4 seconds, aka double the duration of a Showstopper. An incredibly evil tool that you can use to completely dominate 1v1s against other players when used correctly, and I really enjoy it. Zipline. After being placed, a zipline gives you the ability to glide across the entire length of the line in just a few seconds. Players usually use ziplines to travel across wide gaps or to get to areas that are kind of annoying getting to normally. It's basically a shortcut movement tool and a really handy one. Just make sure you don't rush placing the zipline down, or you might end up wasting the item and kind of looking like an idiot. Tagging Grenade. The Tagging Grenade won't do damage, but any arc or raider that ends up getting tagged by the projectiles from the nade will be revealed to you by a little red symbol on your screen for 30 seconds, letting you track their exact whereabouts constantly, even if they are behind cover. While I do prefer more lethal options, I have to admit that the Tagging Grenade is damned effective in the right situations, and you shouldn't sleep on them. Raider Hatch Key. The Raider Hatch Key allows you to unlock any raider hatch you might find in the middle of a match and escape back to Speranza without needing to call for an evac the usual way, which takes way longer. Take note that the Raider hatch key does not work in night raids, but even still they are incredibly handy at helping you make a quick escape with the boys. I usually try to bring one if we're on a mission with really valuable loot, like hunting the matriarch or something. Explosive Mine. After being put down on the ground, an explosive mine will pop up and detonate if any arc or raider gets too close. While it only deals 40 damage, you can place them in very tricky locations to catch other players off guard. For example, behind a closed door, or even more bastardly, at the top of a zipline. I have an entire video that covers devious trap placement, link down in the pinned comment if you haven't watched it yet. Trigger Nade. Ye old Trigger Nade will stick to any surface or arc when you throw it, and it will then give you the option to remotely detonate it whenever the hell you want. If you throw multiple Trigger Nades, they will all go off at the same time when you eventually hit the remote detonation button. Trigger Nades hit hard, 90 damage apiece, meaning you can fully down an enemy raider with just 2 of them. Extremely strong, use them wisely. Blaze Grenade. The Blaze Grenade is basically the Arc Raider's version of a Molotov cocktail. It detonates on impact, covering the immediate area in good old-fashioned fire. The fire will do 5 damage per second for 10 seconds total, meaning you have the ability to do a maximum of 50 damage to any target that spends the full 10 seconds in the fire. Very good for area denial against other raiders or dealing a little extra damage to larger sized arc. Blaze Grenade Trap. Same thing as a Blaze Grenade, but instead of throwing it, you set it up as a trap, and any enemy that walks through the thin red laser sets off the trap, covering the immediate area in fire. Again, you can put these traps out in relatively open areas, but like other traps, they are best used when put in locations that are unavoidable, like the top of ladders or at the top of purely vertical zip lines. Trailblazer. The Trailblazer is a relatively new grenade that works in a very weird way. When you throw it, it first creates a trail of gas, and then about a second later, the entire trail of gas ignites in a rapid-fire string of explosions. Apparently, each explosion in the trail does 20 damage, meaning if you connect with a couple of those explosions, you can do some pretty good damage. In just one grenade throw, I stripped off a raider's entire light shield and half his health. Very strange tool, but powerful in tight corridors. Smoke Grenade. The Smoke Grenade is just an all-around better, more effective version of the common tier Lil Smoke Grenade. The regular Smoke Grenade has a duration of 20 seconds compared to the Little Nade 6 and a radius of 7.5 meters compared to the Little Nade's 2.5. Having a Smoke Grenade makes extracting way easier as you become much harder to see and pick off by enemy raiders who might be watching. Smoke Grenades have a ton of usage to both keep you covered or make it hard for enemies to see, and IMO is one of the best utility items in the entire game, hands down. Smoke Grenade Trap. The Smoke Grenade Trap is the same version of every other trapped up nade. Set it up, and if someone walks through the red laser tripwire, they activate a Smoke Grenade. Gotta be honest, not my favorite. I would much rather use any other traps in the game, even the Gas Grenade Trap, and I kinda consider this a waste of a perfectly good Smoke Grenade that I could have used manually at a time of my own choosing to much greater effect. Come at me, haters. Epic tier. Deadline. The Deadline is the landmine you place on the ground, and it packs a goddamn wallop. 1,000 damage in a 10-meter radius. That's the same thing as hitting an enemy with 33 light impact grenades. The only downside is that the Deadline has a 6-second timer that starts immediately after being put down, meaning that if you want to use it on enemy raiders, they'll have to be trapped in a relatively confined area. It's great at knocking larger arc completely on their ass though, an incredibly strong gadget. Photoelectric Cloak. The Photoelectric Cloak has to be wielded and activated manually, but when activated, you walk slowly waving it around, and arc are straight up not able to see you. You are invisible to them. The cloak can be extremely effective in getting out of tight situations against stronger arc. A great tool overall, but I'm gonna keep it a buck. Smoke grenades are way cheaper. Wolfpack. The Wolfpack is a strong grenade option, but it's only effective against arc. Imagine a Seeker Grenade, which we covered earlier, but instead of one homing missile, the Wolfpack deploys 12, which all seek out any nearby arc and hit for a ton of damage. At maximum, one Wolfpack grenade can deal up to 1,992 damage and is an S tier option for nuking larger arc like Leapers, Bombardiers, and especially Rocketeers. Legendary tier. Snap Hook. The Snap Hook is a portable grappling hook that allows you to Spider-Man web sling around the map. And while that is undoubtedly awesome, there are notable downsides. 1. The maximum range for your grapple shot is 20 meters, meaning while you can quickly zoom up onto rooftops, you can't just instantly get on top of any structure in the game. And 2, you can't spam it. Your Snap Hook has a usage meter that goes down every time you activate the item. After using it 2 times back to back, the meter will be completely empty and you'll have to wait for it to recharge, which unfortunately takes a little while. Overall, an incredibly handy movement tool though. Here's my tier tier list for every gadget against small arc. Here's my tier list for every gadget against large arc. And here's my tier list for every gadget against enemy raiders. Argue away in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching. Peace!